Welcome, welcome everyone to a new Living Life Naturally podcast where you can get all of the information you want. If you are a midlife woman in menopause, perimenopause, this will really help you to get some answers and to be a little more clear. And as always, in the show notes, you will find my free ebook, which will guide you 5 essential steps for thriving in midlife, menopause, whichever you want to call it. And of course, you're always welcome to hop on a free call with me. So today I have with me Dr. Liz Lyster. I'm so thrilled to have her here because she really works in the area that we talk about so much. And she has got a very impressive bio. She's a midlife health expert who's passionate about helping women and men feel their best so they can actually do their best. And as a board certified OBGYN doctor for over 30 years, Dr. Liz has helped women and men increase energy, reignite their sex drive, clear up hormonal imbalances, and lose hundreds of pounds. She is the author of several books, which include Dr. Liz's Easy Guide to Menopause, 5 Steps to Balancing Your Hormones and Feeling Like Yourself Again, and an international bestseller, Go for Great, Dr. Liz's Guide to Thrive at Every Age. So after graduating from Cornell University with honors, Dr. Liz went to medical school at the University of California, Irvine, followed by her OBGYN residency in LA. And to expand her love of teaching, Dr. Liz got a Master's of Public Health degree from UCLA in Community Health Education. And she is currently in private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area. Now, she walks her own talk to model growing older with grace, agility, and power. Dr. Liz celebrated turning 50 a few years ago by climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, so that's very impressive. She's a continuous learner, having logged thousands of hours as a leader, participant, or volunteer in personal development programs since the age of 19. Plus, she's the mom of 2 adult sons, and in case you couldn't guess, she enjoys hiking. So welcome to our show. We're thrilled to have you, Dr. Liz.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn. Pleasure to be here.
So what made you decide you wanted to go into this type of practice?
Couple of things led to it. First of all, I do come from a medical family.
Mm.
Both of my parents are still, they're in their 80s, alive and kicking. They're both retired doctors. They're also from Argentina,
Ah,
which has informed my life, of course, to a great extent. So I always enjoyed it. I was always interested in the health field. So that was pretty much always going to happen. When I was in college, I volunteered at the student health clinic and I saw how important the nurse practitioners were.
mm,
So that was my original plan, is to be a nurse practitioner. And I was going through the process at Cornell. They have a whole lot of support for students interested in health careers. And so I was going through that process, and my mom, working full time at that point as a pediatrician, said, if you're going to go do all that work, just go be a doctor. She said it low key like that. It was not a pressure environment. But I took her advice. I went ahead and did that, which has definitely worked out well in the long run. And then in medical school, you rotate through different specialties.
yes.
And I loved OBGYN. I really loved it. It's a very happy specialty. Delivering babies was fun. The gynecology was great. And what I enjoyed the most, Lynn, is the ability just to talk with patients, the opportunity just to talk with patients. That has always been my favorite part. And now it's what I do full time. I've stopped all the babies and the gyno and the
Mm.
clinic and the surgeries. So full time consultative practice with same women that you work with. So I'm really happy to be able to answer any questions and do what we can to uplift your community.
So it's interesting to me because it seems as years pass, women earlier and earlier are going into perimenopause. And what can be so difficult is you can go to the doctor and you can say, I'm pretty sure I'm in perimenopause, and they might do a hormone blood test if you're lucky, but
If you're lucky.
if you're lucky, and then they tell you, no, in fact, my doctor did this to my daughter. No, you're not in perimenopause, no way. So she's having hot flashes, she's having,
Oh,
all of the things that go along with perimenopause. And I said to her, you've got to go by your symptoms. You cannot go by how these tests come out, because for one thing, it depends which time of month you have the tests. And then it's only a very small part of what hormone testing is about. So I'm
yeah,
sure you come
yeah,
into a lot of that.
absolutely. She got past that first step. I have lots of patients who the doctor said, well, you're still having your period, so it cannot be your hormones, which is, of course, a silly thing to say to a
Yes.
woman.
Yeah.
We deal with hormones fluctuating from puberty all the way from then on. So, and it's highly likely that he did. I think you said the doctor was a he. I'm not sure,
Yeah, I
but it's
think.
highly unlikely. The women doctors aren't. They're not a lot better than the men because very limited with time, very constricted in terms of what they can offer as solutions. But it's very likely that the doctor did very few tests.
Right, right.
When I start with
Yeah.
someone, it's a very thorough, very comprehensive panel of testing. And then, of course, there's the interpretation. That may have also been part of it with her. And you're 100% correct. The basic test that they probably ran was the FSH test. And we need that really early on, like around day 3 of the cycle. So you're exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when women come to you, and I know we all have varying symptoms and some much worse than others. I was very lucky. My hot flashes were not as bad as many women that I see. So what are some of the solutions that you offer to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is, since you mentioned the first book that I wrote, Dr. Liz's Easy Guide to Menopause, that was actually not the best title because that book really is about perimenopause. The audience for
Mhm.
that book is perimenopause. So the first step of the 5 is identifying symptoms, thinking to yourself, this could be hormones, right? And not giving into the gaslighting from the doctor saying, nope, that's not it.
Yeah.
When you know that it is. That's one. And 2 is very thorough testing. 3 is interpreting it to optimal. I'm sure you've seen this as well. People who they get testing done, the doctor says everything's fine, and you look at the result compared to the reference range, and they like barely squeaked into the
Mm,
bottom
mm,
of the range, for example. And then the 4th step is the answer to your question is what I do in terms of treatment. I specialize in bioidentical hormones and
mm,
using that. That is my primary focus and tool and expertise. I also include supplements, very important. I'm addressing not just the female hormones, but thyroid, adrenals, vitamin levels. In medical school, out of 4 years, we had nutrition training for all of 1 week out of 4 years. And they didn't teach us anything terribly useful.
mm.
I've had to educate myself. They teach really what like the RDA addresses, which is the
Yes, more
very
like the
minimum,
government plate type thing.
yeah, like barely keep you from having rickets or having something that people mostly don't have anymore. So supplements are very, very important. So to your approach as well, basically keeping things really as natural as possible, replenishing the body with what it needs. I always talk about a continuum of doctors. On one end, there's the very straight medical, protocol driven. My dad is kind of down at that end of the spectrum. He's a
Mm.
neurologist. And if it's not in the New England Journal of Medicine, he's not interested in hearing
Mm.
about it. So that's kind of very far, like at this end. And then at the very other end is what I call the doctors who take care of the movie stars that do like any crazy thing that anybody thinks up. So I'm not at that extreme. I'm on this side of the middle, which is where we are, where we want to help women be proactive, preventive, right? Address symptoms early on. That's really what we want to do. So that's to the point of being bioidentical and starting really low and going up very slowly. It's not my goal to put people's hormone levels back up super high. I just don't want women to suffer. My
Right.
goal is good quality of life, good sleep, good brain function, uh, metabolism working the way you expect it to, because we know that
Mhm.
changes. So
And
really
and
a whole very holistic approach.
so when we go through perimenopause, which of course is that period of time where we're feeling all of this, but we actually don't go into menopause until we haven't had a period for 12 months. So perimenopause is the whole
Yeah.
10, 15 years.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
So talk to the point of, because I know that this happened to me and I had what I thought was I had a hysterectomy. My doctor refused to take my ovaries because I was only 39. However,
Okay.
they were covered with endometriosis, which he had to laser
Mm.
off.
Oh
So
gosh.
so then
Wow.
what you don't know is, of course, you know when you have a hysterectomy, you go into a rapid
Yes.
menopausal type thing.
Yes. Tends to
Uh,
speed up that process.
yes.
That's right.
But if
Hmm.
it's a partial hysterectomy, women need to be aware of the fact your ovaries are still working. So you're still going into another kind of menopause a few years
That's
down the
right.
road.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, that's what I thought you meant. That's what I was speaking to is if you're the classic example where the surgery that removes the uterus, as you can imagine, has to clamp, that's what we use, their surgical instruments to uh, cut off the blood supply to the uterus so that the uterus can be removed. That definitely, at first, people were thinking, does that speed up the onset of menopause? And it finally got properly studied. And yes, it does. It sure does. So it's not women's imaginations that if they have their uterus removed and still have their ovaries, that it's very common for the onset of perimenopausal symptoms and menopause to occur a little ahead of schedule, right? Average age is 51, and you were super young when you had that hysterectomy. So, yeah, I can see both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, because I understand that it keeps your body healthier if you've got your ovaries. What was sad for me that my ovaries then I was having pain again, and my ovaries had intertwined with my small intestines, and I ended up having to have more surgeries and
Oh,
lost my
yeah.
ovaries anyway. And I'm like,
Ay, ay, ay.
so for some women, their journey can be pretty simple. For some women, it can be quite an ordeal. Is there a
Yeah.
reason why for some women it may be more? I'm thinking really about when you think about hot flashes. Why do some women experience them more intensely than others? Has that been studied?
It has definitely been studied. It's really hard to say any clear specifics because I've seen super healthy, fit women have a lot of symptoms.
Mm.
I've seen very unhealthy, not fit women do fine. So I have really seen all variations on the theme.
Mm.
I have not seen any clear correlations. Yeah, yeah. I mean, right? Wouldn't we love to know
Yeah,
exactly how
yeah.
to make it nice and smooth? What's really important also is that, and another comment that I think we're going to get to that applies to women who've had. Well, let me say it so I don't forget. Is unfortunately what in my residency training, for example, and still doctors, OBGYN doctors for sure, are under the uh, not correct information that a woman who's had a hysterectomy does not need any progesterone.
Mm.
And that's very important because women get perimenopause, menopause symptoms, their sleep is disrupted, and maybe they're being given estrogen, But the idea being that the estrogen and progesterone have to balance each other at the level of the lining of the uterus. And so if a woman doesn't have her uterus, most doctors say, okay, well, you don't need any progesterone. Well, we know that progesterone helps all kinds of things.
Mm.
It calms the brain, it helps with sleep, it calms anxiety, it helps with mood, metabolism, it helps with a lot. So there's
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Now
So
that's
would
not where
you,
you wanted me to head. Where did
well,
you want
that's
me
all
to head?
right. So it
I didn't want to forget to say that.
just made me think about the fact that so a woman gets into menopause, they haven't had a period for so long. Do they still need to keep on taking um, any kind of supplements or bioidentical hormones?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. And I remembered what I wanted to say in response to where we were is that we have a modern problem, which is we live a long time.
Yes.
200 years ago, only 5% of women could expect to reach age 50. Completely not what we have
Wow.
now. Now we have at least half of us that are going to live at least into our 80s. So we have decades in this, I'm going to say, hormonally depleted environment in our bodies. And again, I always say I'm not here to persuade women to use hormones. However, as I get older, I think I'm getting a little bolder because we know that the right types of hormones, given the right way, are very safe and huge, fantastic impact on quality of life, and even lowering disease. So, lowering risk of cancer, improving bone density, helping the brain. There's really so many benefits, and we live a long time. So, women, we want to feel good.
So what about those years when we're postmenopausal? Should we still be taking hormones?
Okay, that is probably the number one question that every single one of my patients have because and one of the things I always want to say is that if a woman's not feeling well as she's going into menopause, using hormones to feel better does not commit her to use it forever. A lot of women they're afraid because of wrong information that has become part of the fabric, unfortunately,
Mm.
of the knowledge of doctors. But they worry, they don't want to use anything because then they think they'll be stuck, and that's not true. So the most intense symptoms are in the transition into menopause. Things usually settle down, but Lynn, half of women will continue to have hot flashes. When I learned that it was that
Yes,
high, I was like, wow. Okay.
I can
So,
really relate to that. Yes.
yeah, right. So there are a number of answers to that question. Here's my personal answer. I will personally use at least a small amount of my hormones, particularly estrogen, to help my bones. That is my answer. I I use estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Love testosterone for women is a wonderful hormone. But that's it's not the highest doses. So a lot of times when I'm helping a woman feel better when she's going into menopause, we are very often able to taper things down as the years go by. So that's sort of important to note. My mom had breast cancer when she was 68.
Mm.
Now she's 86. I know we don't use the word cure, but she's essentially was cured, was caught early, treated, and here she is 18 years later, doing great. But they took her off her hormones, and she's had all kinds of issues
Mm.
related to that. Her bones are super weak. She breaks things really often. Uh, other other issues, but even with that family history, I still, I there's a lot of data showing estrogen actually lowering the risk of breast cancer. We know that's not what the
Mm.
understanding is that's out
Mm.
there, but that's actually what the data show. That's my
Mm.
long answer to that question because I think that question deserves a longer answer.
Yeah, it's all very
Yeah.
interesting because people tend to think, or when I get through menopause, that's it. I don't need anything. I'm fine. I'm done. And I found it myself that, I think if only here we had somebody that was a functional medicine doctor or somebody that could really do the right testing. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that you do yours virtually as well.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because I
absolutely.
think that to live longer and healthier, and I tell my women that when they get to perimenopause, which is often around 40, they've really only lived half of their life. And who wants to live the second half of their life feeling miserable? We want to feel strong and healthy and vital through all of those years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay, hear, hear.
Yeah. So
I
I
totally
don't
agree
think
with
we
that.
should throw away what they say, whoever they are,
Right.
that, oh, when you've got to menopause, you just don't need that stuff anymore. Because I think in my own life, I've seen that's not so. And
Same,
again, yes, and
same.
find
Yeah,
somebody like Dr. Liz who can really investigate that. I'm sorry, I'm not putting my doctors down, but they're really not going to give you the answers that you need. And some of that
yeah,
because they weren't taught in school, they're not equipped to really deal with this very specialized area.
that's right. That's right. And there was a time, actually, it was when I was writing my first book. I was 43 years old. I was writing about getting tested, and I said I should check my own labs and discovered that my FSH was really high, up in the menopause range already. So that was kind of a eye opener for me. And so I was very young going into menopause, and I knew the I already had looked more carefully at the data. This was closer to when the Women's Health Initiative study came out in 2002, 2003, which was just such a really terrible negative impact on the quality of life for
Mm,
so many women for the last 2 decades. So I am part of a group of, I'm going to call it a movement to uh, redeem the right types of hormones, bioidentical, the same as what the body used to make plenty of back when we felt great.
mm,
So I
mm,
100% agree with your philosophy and your approach. I mean,
mm.
we want women to feel good.
Yes.
Everyone's better off when we feel good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what kind of supplements do you have women take?
Very often vitamins, vitamin D,
Mhm.
which, as we know, is not a vitamin, it's actually a hormone. So that's really important. I talk about vitamin D all the time. I deal with a lot of women who, in this whole process of their hormone imbalance, they're addressing metabolism and weight loss.
Mhm.
So I use B12 a lot, which is going to be very helpful. Let's see, adrenal supplements are really fantastic.
Mhm.
There are many. All the supplements that I recommend are what we call pharmaceutical grade.
Mhm.
There are, unfortunately, there are studies that show that some of the supplements that you can get at regular retail stores, they do not contain what they say they contain.
Yes.
It's really quite shocking.
Yeah.
So let's just see. Sometimes there's other ones that support thyroid function. What else? Sleep support. I believe that a lot of the supplements that are out there are great. One of the many hormones that decline as we get older is melatonin.
Mm.
Some people don't feel good with melatonin. That's totally fair.
Yeah. I
And
don't.
yeah, yeah, it's there's one that I like, for example. It comes in, as you know, probably hundreds of different forms and doses,
Mm.
if you found all of them out there. But there's one that I like that's a liquid. And so just a little bit of the liquid under the tongue is helpful for that middle of the night waking that a lot of us experience. So very much a personal, I have the body of knowledge, but you have the knowledge of your body.
Yes.
So it's always
Yes.
a study with one person in the trial, and that is you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I so agree with you that one of the things I've often said to people, please don't go to your corner pharmaceutical place or your grocery store and buy
Right.
vitamins from there. And I understand that they're a little bit more expensive, which is sometimes hard for people. Um,
Yeah.
but I know the one thing that I have to say for my own doctor, he has really stressed the vitamin D. And every time I go in, he asks me, "Are you taking your vitamin D?" The other one
Awesome.
is the B12, because for another thing, I'm a vegetarian slash just about vegan. So he really recommended the B12 for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
Beautiful.
I I know there are some that magnesium is another one. And
Yes,
yes,
absolutely. You're right. I take magnesium at night.
yes,
You're absolutely right. That's a really nice one. Yeah. Very
yeah,
important for us at this age. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I'm
And I,
preparing for turning 60. So I'm listening. I'm
yes.
taking my own notes from our conversation.
Yeah,
So
and I've done podcasts with a couple of women in the past who actually their area of expertise was magnesium supplementation. Found that
nice.
very helpful in where I should be, because I'm a migraine sufferer. And you would think once you get through menopause, no, mine have never stopped. My
Wow.
neurologist even is like, "You were just one of those odd people." I
Oh
just don't
yeah,
know
that's
why, but a lot
oh
of it is the weather, our lovely weather here in Florida. People come here because of the weather, but when you live here, it's really quite different. So,
interesting.
yeah,
Gotcha. All right.
yeah. So,
Okay.
do you have any specific tips or strategies that you would like to share with our women?
Yes, a couple that I definitely like to say as often as I can. One, in terms of lifestyle, people know, especially people that are your audience, we do our best to eat well, to avoid toxins. One of the strategies that I really prioritize at the top of lifestyle, uh, the to-do list of lifestyle, is protecting your sleep. Protecting our
Yes.
sleep. We as women, we have a bad habit of putting ourselves last on our to-do list. Okay, putting our own oxygen mask on after we helped everyone else, which nobody has ever instructed us to do on an airplane. All right, so protecting our sleep is very, 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 very essential. Another, I will call it a strategy. You asked it that way, and I think I'm going to now refer to it as a strategy, which is really advocating for yourself. You have to be the
Yes.
tail that wags the dog. There are studies that show, in my specialty, in OBGYN, it's this incredible list of GYN problems that doctors do not talk about with their patients unless the patient brings it up. So we want people to be prepared, bring your notes, bring your questions,
Mm.
ask the questions at the beginning. I always like to do that. I like to see people's questions, like show them all to me at the start. And that way I really can be sure, versus me talking about whatever I think there is. And then when I think we're wrapping it up, then the patient has all these questions. So that's my strategy because I want to
Yes.
make sure that people get all their questions answered. And
Yes.
then I would say one more is get rid of the what I call the J word, which is the word just. That's when women are told you're just getting older, or you just have to live with feeling fill in the blank, tired, gaining weight, fuzzy brain, bad mood. Not true. Just take that word just, circle around it, line through it, and cross that one out.
Absolutely true. That's a good thing. It's just like people, what they say is, well, now I'm in menopause and I'm getting into my late 50s, 60s. What's the point? Well, the point is you really want to have that anti-aging going on for you and that
Yes,
longevity. And a lot of it
that's
is
right.
our mind. I think if we can establish a healthy mindset, we're so much further ahead of the game.
Yes, I agree. I agree completely.
So, where can our listeners find you?
The very best place is my website. I have lots of social media. I love Instagram. I do have a private Facebook group that women can join. It's free. But my website has links to all of that. And it's www.drlizmd.com. People can write to me. They can see blogs that I've written. That's kind of like the central station. It does have all the links to all the social media, which is usually Dr. Liz Lyster or Dr. Liz MD. And I want to make sure that the information got all the way to you, that I do have a gift for your listeners. I love that you have the ebook just right there in the show, just all the show notes, but also the basic show description. I'm like, oh, that's really good. I like that. And so my gift is an ebook of the bestseller book that is the most recent one that I published, which is the Go for Great, Dr. Liz's Guide to Thrive at Every Age. And GREAT is an acronym. It stands for gain knowledge, realize the truth about hormones, explore your expectations. It's not a magic silver bullet. Realize, let's see, GREA, advocate for yourself. And T is for thrive.
That's awesome. Yes, all of that will be in the show notes, and people can just click on the links there and go have fun. I did that on your website today and went through all of if you have a YouTube channel as well, correct?
Absolutely. I'm turning my focus to that. I think you know how this goes when you have so many projects going on, but I really want to focus on that one because then I can just look and record videos and just talk to people. So I am focusing also on the YouTube channel.
Well, thanks. It's been great to have a chat with you, and our listeners, I'm sure, can go to your website, reach out to you if they have any questions. I really appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of your expert input. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. Thank you.
You have been listening to the Living Life Naturally podcast, where we're on a mission to inform, inspire, and encourage women to live their best life confidently, joyfully, and freely from what's been holding them back. For show notes and free resources, visit holistic-healthandwellness.com. And I'd be delighted if you'd follow us on socials to connect further. If you enjoyed this show, why not share it with your friends? If you found good value, chances are they will too. And of course, a 5-star review on iTunes is always greatly appreciated, as much as I appreciate you listening. So until next time, live life naturally and joyfully.